The prophet Elijah is coming soon. Hello, my name is Raul Nunez. I pastor Celebration Center in Irvine, California. And today I'll be speaking with the three of the men behind the vision of bringing the story of a prophet Elijah to the big screen. With me today are Gavin Scott, screenwriter, producer, and director, Paul Fiore, executive producer, and Paul Griffin, producer and director. Welcome to Celebration Center.
Thank you.
Since the beginning of the film industry, there has been a drastic decline that has taken place in our society of acceptance of unwholesome movies. As you envision, what would be the impact of Elijah on our society, the ways of thinking, when it comes to this movie, and how would the impact help the church?
Well, the story in itself portrays Elijah as this national hero. It's not only on a national level, but on a spiritual level as well. He stands against the great odds. He's like a one-man army. And just looking at society in general, here we have a lot of parallels going on with what's going on. The way there was so much hedonism and so forth in Israel at that time. And here you have this one, as Gavin so aptly put it, this one barrier between the status quo and the right thing. Do we make that right choice? And so he stands as like this paradigm, this image that everybody can look up to and say, yeah, I want to be like that. I want to make those kind of choices, regardless of the cost. And he knew it was at the peril of his own life to do this. And and the way the script is written, it's just phenomenal. You know, when we got together on this thing and Gavin would send drafts, I'd be like, my mind would be blown, you know, at how beautifully he put it together.
I would add one thing.
Sure.
Traditionally, in almost every industry, there's a handful of people that act as the gatekeeper. They decide what films will be made, what TV shows will be aired, and it's a very interesting time that we're in right now, where in our world, for example, there's popular TV shows like American Idol, where it's no longer one person who represents which artists will be discovered and then force them into the community, regardless of whether the people want that artist or want that TV show or want that film. And the thing that's inspired us is that we feel like we are in a position to turn the model around. Instead of having the one or two gatekeepers decide what you will watch and what will be aired on television or will be shown in theaters, we as a community, through grassroots efforts, could help to share the word that people of faith, people that want to see wholesome content, can decide this is the content we want to watch. And what's happened in Hollywood historically is, in the few instances where they have picked a film that would be appealing to this audience, it's never treated with almost the same respect they would do for an epic movie. In fact, it was 1958 was the last time Hollywood made a live action movie called The Ten Commandments that appealed to a religious audience. And I was business partners with Hans Zimmer when he was doing the film score for Prince of Egypt. And even there, they took a story in Moses that had been done many times before, and they did it as an animation, a cartoon, versus doing it the same scale they would do a story like Gladiator.
Exactly.
And that's what we hope to change.
That's right.
Can I come in there with the fact that in some ways the concept that the Pauls have for making this movie, that is to say involving the religious community, the believers of America, in making this happen, has an analogy with what our story is. Elijah was not saying, I alone will be a good man. You, Ahab, should be a good man. He was saying, the people of Israel must all play their part in coming back to God. Everyone has a role to play. And if this movie is going to happen, it will be because everyone who is a believer plays their part, does their thing. And it's kind of a challenge in the same way that Elijah posed a challenge to the people of his time. I just hope people step up.
You know, this is exciting, just you know, as we're sharing this. Can you give me a little bit more input on Elijah when you were writing so much of this? Give me a little bit more of your thoughts on that.
It is such an inspiring story in many ways, because you have the relationship between Elijah the prophet trying to push Ahab into the right way when Ahab was being pushed into the wrong way by his own wife. You know? But you also have Elijah's relationship with God.
Yes.
There is a repeated reference in the story to the fact that Elijah felt that the challenge that God was giving him was too much.
Yeah.
That he, Elijah, wasn't strong enough to it. Something we all feel, you know. That he would say, I've gone and confronted the king. I've gone and challenged the powers that be. I've risked my life. And that's enough, Lord. I've done enough. Let me go. And he would go off into the desert, and then he would be succored by the ravens. Remember the ravens bringing him food?
Yeah.
Forces would remind him of the power of God and bring him back, give him the strength to go back into the fight. And there are times when Elijah is saying, Lord, I have given everything I have got. And he was told, no, you have more to give. Now, that is deeply inspiring to everybody.
Yes.
You know, that relationship with God is a demanding one, and we see it acted out by a great man.
That's wonderful.
I love that.
Excellent.
Terrific.
Paul, why do you believe that there has been so few movies created in Hollywood? Do you think that the media is biased against religious movies?
Absolutely. I'll take that one first.
Yeah.
Think about it this way. When Prince of Egypt was being made, and Jeffrey Katzenberg was the producer, it wasn't a movie you could take lightly. So they were required to bring it to market in such a way that everyone was okay. So, for example, the Pope had a screening of the movie. Synagogues and major rabbis had screenings of movies. And everyone has an opinion and a voice and wants to see the treatment of it done in a certain way. And, I remember Hans Zimmer saying Jeffrey Katzenberg will never in his lifetime do another film targeting religious audience. And the studio system in Hollywood is basically owned by corporations. So let's say there's one scene that is offensive, and the Catholic Church says to the billion Catholics, we're going to boycott Sony. They're not going to boycott Sony Pictures. They will boycott all of Sony products worldwide. Would essentially bring the corporation to its knees. So they, by design, steer away from, films that are going to bring controversy or potentially have risk. And also, as I mentioned before, there's this concept of gatekeeper. So there's one or two people at the very, very top of the pyramid in the Hollywood system that says, this is the movie content that we're going to deliver. And those people are either on the West Coast, predominantly in California, some on the East Coast in New York, and don't represent, the entire country in America.
There's another point I'd like to add there, which is this question of making a film for believers. What I like to think about this film is that I like to feel that every believer will get behind making it happen. I like to feel that they will go and see this film and feel spiritually renewed. But I also want this to be a movie for non-believers. For non-Christians, for people of every faith, for people of no faith. Because that's the point. It's no good just preaching to the choir. And we want to make this a movie which is an exciting cinema experience. It's, what's going to happen next? I hate her, I love him, all of those emotions, but at the same time with a bigger spiritual goal. So that people go to see it because it's great entertainment, and they come away from it fulfilled spiritually. I think it's got that potential.
That's true. And I'm also fascinated by the economics and the financial parts of it. I have a background, I worked on Wall Street, I worked in finance for many years. And if you think about, here's a category of film where there's a demand. There's great demand from the entire country. And yet there's very, very, very little content that's actually put out there for people to consume. Well, the interesting thing is the studios are supposedly the experts at finding their audience. So here is the picture that would appeal to this segment. Here's how we're going to find that segment. Well, guess what? The studios don't know anything about that market and that segment. In fact, one of the first films that I produced and financed was about the restaurant business, people that work at a TGI Fridays type restaurant. And I remember Lionsgate Film distributed the movie and spent $20 million marketing the movie. It's called P&A, Prints and Advertising. And at the end, the movie opened in 1,500 theaters around the country. And their goal was, okay, who would watch this movie? People that are 18 to 24 years old, predominantly males. Let's advertise on their the stations and channels that they would watch. Well, my cousin and I, for $300, not $20 million, printed business cards, and we went to the Hop Hog, New York, Island 16 Theater, and we went around the community and handed out business cards to people that worked at restaurants. Applebee's, Cheesecake Factory, Bennigan's, TGI Fridays. Monday morning, the reports came out of 1,500 theaters in America. That theater was #1 in the United States. So for $300, we did a better job of marketing and distributing the movie to people that were likely to see it than one of the largest studios in America did with $20 million in cash.
Amazing.
Take that to the religious community, or people of faith in general, and you get the same dynamics. The studio systems don't know who they are, where they are, how to reach them. So what we're doing is reversing the model. So here you have make it, market it, and then hope people come. We want to do the opposite. We want to tell people, if this is the movie you want to see, show your support, let us know that you want to see it, and then we don't have to spend the $175 million in marketing.
Paul, we were just talking, about the marketing, how important that is, and which brings me to this next question. Mel Gibson, The Passion of Christ, was #1 at the box office for 3 weeks in a row, which was tremendous. It grossed over $400 million in ticket sales worldwide, and it did just as well in the DVD sales. Do you see Elijah as having a similar success, and if so, why?
Well, I think Passion of the Christ is a great example of what we had just been speaking about. Here's a industry that's unserved with product that you would like that you can't get, and the gatekeepers of society say, we don't want to make this movie. In fact, even Passion of Christ, as successful it was not made by a Hollywood studio.
Right.
It was made independently with private capital and marketed using a grassroots marketing effort to people that were likely to see the film. And, from an economic standpoint, so here's content that is valuable, that people will watch and pay money to watch and buy on DVD, and yet still, the surprising thing isn't to me that Passion of Christ did so well. The surprising thing is there weren't 10 movies followed on to address the same market and the same audience. And I think it speaks to the same points we've just been discussing. People don't know how to market to this audience, and they're worried about bringing content that may be controversial.
Yeah. And can I say this, that I think we have some advantages in terms of our story for reaching out to a larger audience. There were criticisms, I don't think they were really well-founded, but there were criticisms of the Passion of the Christ of being anti-Semitic. Not true, but it was said. It put some people off. This is a story that celebrates one of Judaism's great heroes.
That's right.
So it is celebrating Israel, which we ought to do.
Right.
Elijah is also a prophet who appeals to Christians.
Yes.
He's also respected by Muslims.
Yes.
And so in terms of that spread of people who will feel comfortable in going to see this film, it's there. Passion of the Christ also dealt with a terrible subject, that is to say, the torture and death of our Lord. This deals with a subject which is uplifting, because uplifting in a different way. Obviously, the story of Christ is deeply uplifting, but this is a story of triumph, of a man who overcomes his own personal fears and weaknesses to confront evil and triumphs.
That's right.
And so that is one that everybody can go and see and feel good about.
Yes.
It's also exciting. It's got a great chariot battle in the finale.
Exactly.
Do you remember in the Ten Commandments the excitement of Pharaoh's forces racing after the children of Israel towards the Red Sea in their chariots? We've got something, I think, even better than that.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
So we've got a movie that has everything that Hollywood demands, a 4-quadrant movie, one you can take your family to of any age. And if you look at the benchmark of the success of The Passion of the Christ, I believe we can go beyond that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's right. It was a good point. I think, too, when you think about, going back to the previous question about the marketing, Hollywood underestimated Passion, didn't they?
Oh, totally.
And I think that when this comes out, this movie, this is going to be one of those tremendous movies that's going to have such an impact on Hollywood that it's going to raise eyebrows again as it did the movie Passion. So I'm pretty excited about this movie on Elijah. I think it's going to have a tremendous impact, especially for the body of Christ to rally behind it.
Absolutely.
And wouldn't it be wonderful if it encouraged Hollywood to make more movies going back to the Bible and telling those amazing stories?
Yes.
We want to make more, but I'd love it if the studios got